Some people become weaker after pain. Others become quieter, sharper, harder to break. Trauma changes everyone, but sometimes it creates a kind of mental strength most people never understand. There are people walking through life right now who look calm on the outside, but inside, they survived emotional storms that almost destroyed them. They learned how to carry pain without asking anyone for help. They learned how to read danger before it arrived. And somewhere in the middle of all that suffering, their mind adapted in ways even they don't fully understand. Emotional pain changes the human mind slowly, not always in dramatic ways. Sometimes it changes a person through silence, through disappointment, through nights where they had nobody to talk to. The mind begins building invisible defenses just to survive. Over time, those defenses stop being temporary. They become part of the person. And while trauma can leave scars, it can also create a strange kind of psychological strength that most people never notice. Emotional pain changes the human mind slowly, not always in dramatic ways. Sometimes it changes a person through silence, through disappointment, through nights where they had nobody to talk to. The mind begins building invisible defenses just to survive. Over time, those defenses stop being temporary. They become part of the person. And while trauma can leave scars, it can also create a strange kind of psychological strength that most people never notice. Another sign is that you notice things other people miss. Tiny changes in tone, facial expressions, energy shifts in a room. You read people deeply without trying. Trauma often creates hyper-awareness because the subconscious learns to scan for emotional threats constantly. As a child or during painful periods of life, you may have needed to predict moods in order to protect yourself emotionally. Over time, this created a deep sensitivity to human behavior. Sometimes it feels exhausting. Sometimes you wish you could turn it off. But it also gives you emotional intelligence most people never develop. You understand hidden emotions because you spent years surviving around them. A powerful sign of hidden strength is emotional independence. You stopped expecting people to save you a long time ago. You learned how to comfort yourself because nobody else knew how. And while this can sometimes create loneliness, it also creates resilience. Trauma teaches some people that depending too heavily on others can lead to disappointment or abandonment. So the mind adapts. It learns self-protection. It learns emotional self-reliance. You may still want love and connection deeply, but you no longer collapse when people leave. That strength was not natural. It was built slowly through survival. Another sign is that you became deeply self-aware. Pain forced you inward. While other people distracted themselves, you spent years inside your own thoughts, trying to understand why you felt the way you did. Trauma often creates introspection because suffering pushes people to examine themselves more honestly. You began noticing your patterns, your triggers, your fears, your emotional reactions. And even though this self-awareness came from pain, it gave you something valuable: understanding. People who never suffer deeply often avoid looking at themselves completely. But you had no choice. You met parts of yourself most people spend their whole lives hiding from. You may also struggle to fully trust people, but this has made you mentally stronger in ways nobody talks about. You observe before opening up. You protect your inner world carefully. Some people call this emotional distance, but beneath it is wisdom created through experience. Trauma teaches the mind that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. So instead of giving your trust away easily, you learned patience, you learned discernment. And while this can sometimes make relationships harder, it also protects your peace. Your mind became selective because it remembers what emotional betrayal feels like. Another hidden sign is your ability to survive loneliness. Many people cannot sit alone with their thoughts for very long. Silence scares them. But you became familiar with emotional isolation long ago. Somewhere in your life, you learned how to survive without constant reassurance. And because of that, you developed a deeper relationship with yourself. Trauma can isolate people emotionally, but it can also create inner endurance. You learned how to carry sadness quietly. You learned how to keep moving even when nobody understood what you were feeling. That kind of strength is invisible, but it is real. One of the deepest signs trauma made you stronger is that you became emotionally layered. You understand that human beings are complicated. You no longer see life in simple black and white ways. Pain destroyed illusions for you. It showed you that people can love you and hurt you at the same time. It showed you that good people can carry darkness inside them. This awareness can make you feel disconnected from shallow conversations because your mind naturally searches for deeper meaning. Suffering expanded your emotional depth. It forced you to confront the hidden parts of human nature, including your own shadow, the anger, fear, sadness, and survival instincts you once tried to bury. But instead of letting those parts destroy you completely, you slowly learned how to live beside them. There is also a quiet strength in the way you recover from disappointment now. Pain changed your expectations. You no longer believe life will always be fair. And strangely, that acceptance made you stronger emotionally. You stopped expecting perfection from people. You stopped expecting constant happiness from life. Trauma taught you that suffering is part of being human. And because you accepted that truth, you became harder to break when difficult seasons arrive. You bend without collapsing. You grieve without completely losing yourself. Another sign is the way you protect other people emotionally. People who suffer deeply often become gentle with pain. You know what it feels like to be misunderstood, ignored, abandoned, or emotionally unseen. So when others are hurting, you notice it quickly. You listen differently. You speak carefully. Your empathy became stronger because your wounds taught you what emotional pain feels like from the inside. Some of the kindest people in the world are people who once begged silently for kindness themselves. And finally, one of the strongest signs trauma changed you is that you no longer need constant validation to know your worth. Pain forced you to build an identity separate from other people's approval. You learned that applause disappears. Attention fades. People misunderstand you. But your survival gave you something deeper than validation. It gave you self-recognition. You know how much you endured. You know how many times you rebuilt yourself privately while the world saw nothing. That creates a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. The truth is, trauma changes a person forever. Some wounds never fully disappear. Certain memories stay hidden inside the body long after the mind moves on. But sometimes, pain creates people who are emotionally deeper, more aware, more resilient, and more human than they ever would have been otherwise. Not louder, not colder, just stronger in quiet ways the world rarely notices. And maybe that's the strange thing about survival. The people who suffered the most often become the ones carrying the deepest emotional strength, while saying almost nothing about it at all.